Hi everybody. So now we're at my desk here, and this is where all the magic happens, and I put together my cut paper pieces. But this is an illustration that I am going to put together in this video, and everything's been painted, everything's been cut already. I'm pretty sure I kind of know how I'm gonna place it, because I've done all this preliminary work. And I will tell you, as an illustrator, if you do the preliminary work, it really makes it a lot easier, especially if you tend to do something that is going to be handcrafted and there's no like Command Z, undo. Then you kind of want to have things kind of planned out in advance, and it can be really helpful. So what I will do is I will do a lot of thumbnails. And so this is kind of the storyboard. It's very rough. And this is one of the early versions for this children's book story that I'm writing and illustrating. But yeah, it's one of those things, like, they're really rough, they're not really pretty thumbnails. So these are thumbnail sketches. They're about the size of my thumb, as you can see. I'll also do like character studies as well, so I know how my characters are going to look. I think that's really helpful in the process. And then there's something called comprehensive. So as an illustrator, we are doing some value studies. And so here for this one, and I did several different value studies of this. So this just helps me know, like, where I want to have my lights and my darks. You know, things in the background probably going to be lighter. So for me, I was like, I want dark front, light background. And then once I have this done, and I do this digitally, like the drawing is usually by hand, and then I scan it in, and then I work on it digitally with the value. But then I'll also do what we call color comprehensives. So this is where I do my color version of this. So, and I did multiples of this. This wasn't just like the only one I did. I think I did, usually I average about 4 or 5 of these. And so I have another version where you can see, and like this one is for another interior illustration for a spread. And so I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I ended up doing 5 in total, and then I was able to narrow it down to the one that I like the best, that fits at that moment in time and makes things readable. Yeah, but I always do value first, and then I'm switching those colors in the computer to actual hues so that you can kind of get a sense of the time of day or the emotion or feeling from it. Okay, so with that said, how do I actually take all the pieces that I've cut and then place them together? I am fortunate to have a tabloid sized printer, so I print an 11 by 17 sheet with the words laid out and everything. And so you can see I've used this for tracing my shapes. Then I pre-make all my little pieces. You can see, like, everything's not fully finished because I don't always need it to be. If something is not seen in the image, I won't usually finish it. Sometimes I do, but it just depends, I guess. But with this, like, I didn't finish the legs off because I knew I wouldn't reuse this. It's just a one-off, and it gets cut like in the picture about that amount. So it's really like placing things. So I didn't finish this arm here, but I know that this is going to be placed, and I literally line it up with my drawing. So I'm placing things together like that. I have the background pieces, and that's where I'm going to kind of start and jump into getting those done first. So each thing is and cut, and then I have them ready to go, and then I can figure out how I'm going to place them. So it always kind of reminds me of the old-fashioned cell animation where you kind of have to flip the page, flip it. Oh, we want to make sure this is here, this is not here. I've kind of learned over time to make things wider than they need to be, because oftentimes it's great to have a little bit of wiggle room. So even though this is the actual trim where these crop marks it's intended for, sometimes I like to like zoom in a little bit and digitally, because then I'm like, oh, I kind of like how that looks a little bit better. So it's good to be flexible. And I do have my moon and my star. And so I'm going to start with the sky first. I think that's kind of easier. And so I'll lay out these pieces. And then I know I'm just going to take these off here. So it's literally, I know the sun is going to go here. because it's by the word sun. And then I do this little flip thing to kind of see, is that working? A lot of back and forth. So yeah, some people don't like it because this would be very quick in the computer. And then I use my handy dandy tacky glue. Lots of different kinds of glues. I have even a small glue bottle. This is just Elmer's glue, but then I like the Aleene's tacky glue because it's a little bit thicker. It's not as runny. It tends to dry a little bit faster than what Elmer's glue does. Everybody's different. I just found that in this little bottle, it was easier to get the Elmer's glue in there. And so I just tried it with that. I picked these up off of Amazon, and you can buy a bunch of these packs of it. But that way you have this small tip, and it's super easy for applicating the glue. And then this lid goes back on top so it doesn't dry out. Some things that I have found that are helpful to have as well when I'm doing this kind of work is a really good pair of tweezers. Man, these are actually intended for, I got these for changing out the battery for my laptop, and then I was like, oh man, this works really well. It's got a better spring. I have other tweezers, but the spring is not as good, and when the spring is not as good and you're really having to push those two things together, you're like, I don't want to use it. So I love that. And then I also keep my handy, I use these Tim Holtz scissors. I really like these. I've tried other little mini scissors, like, believe me, I have several, and like I have lots of scissors. This works the best to me. I just feel like they're just easier to maneuver with. I will also keep X-Acto blades, and so I've like my little hand-built one. So I have those at the ready. I will layer this up with pieces of foam board, and so now it's kind of deciding like how much depth I want this to have, because overall this will probably only have 3 inches of depth altogether, but it'll give that illusion that things are casting a shadow, so it just looks further away, and I just really enjoy it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start stop talking, and I'm gonna start gluing things down. And a lot of times, by the way, if I'm not sold on something quite yet, I will use double-sided foam tape. I buy that at your local craft hobby supply store. It comes in a multitude of sizes. I also love these little pre-cut squares because boy, do they come in handy. It's already and saves so much time, because otherwise I was having to cut them into smaller. You just peel it off the back side, and then I can lift this up. And then boom, it's done. And then I'll go on to the next one. So it's still, I can still reposition things as needed. And I love that for flexibility. And so I'm going to look at that. I will use double-sided foam tape. Yeah, I go through a lot of double-sided foam tape all the time. It's a wonderful. And I've found that some double-sided foam tape brands are stickier. So it just depends on the brand you're using. There we go. Got that one down. Going to the next one. Sometimes I do use hot glue. I'm not, you know, really not my favorite to use hot glue. Hot glue is a mess, and I constantly burn myself. So I love how it casts those shadows. That's what I'm a big fan of. It gives it that sense of depth. And I know some people are like, you could just do it digitally. And yes, you could do it digitally. But there is something about the photography when you do it. And well, part of it is because to me, it's these little chromatic aberrations. So if you do photography, the lenses depending on the quality of it, but most lenses will have a little bit of that aberration. And in digital art, you won't see it when you zoom in and you kind of like the nuance of it. You'll be like, oh, I don't see how those, oh, there's almost like this slight gradation. Oops. So you got to be careful. Don't accidentally untape something. So that happens. I use drafting tape